County isn't necessarily known as a hub for young people. But as we continue to grow, there is a group of millennials trying to build a sense of community for young professionals. Welcome to I Am Brevard. I'm Isadora. Today I am interviewing Shane Bergman, founder of 321 Millennials. They aren't just a networking group, they also help the Space Coast through volunteer work. Shane and I talked about what Brevard needs to do to attract more people in their 20s and 30s and why we are a special place to build a career. Watch. Shane, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for the invitation, Isadora.
So let's start with, what is 321 Millennials?
Yeah, okay. So 321 Millennials is a nonprofit organization, so 501c3. And essentially it's a group of young professionals and older professionals that decided they wanted to get together, and we use it as a platform for just different networking events, things that can benefit us throughout the community and really grow each other as professionals.
And it started because you found there was a void for a group of young professionals prior to that. What was the incentive to start 321 Millennials?
So the incentive was essentially when I separated from the military, I had this strong camaraderie, and it was the military brothers in arms that we had. And when I transitioned into the civilian world, I could not find another organization that it felt like a family and it felt tight. And so I had looked at a couple other ones that we have in the community currently, and I just didn't feel right to me. So I kind of met with a couple of people that I had close to me and asked them if this would be something that they would be interested in. And of course they loved the idea, so some of the founding board chairs that we have currently all kind of rallied on board with a group that we really focus on relationships first, and then business should come or might come later.
And so one of the big misconceptions is that you have to be a millennial, and we will talk about what a millennial actually is in a minute. But older people can also join, right? So I'm sure you want to get that message out, or what are the requirements to be part of 321 Millennials? So
when we first started the organization, it was predominantly and mainly for millennials, and we categorized that from 1980 to 2002 of your birth year. There are a few definitions out there, but really that was the one that we adhered to because it was the easiest one to remember, 1980 to 2000. It's just a 20-year gap. But 3 years ago, that's when we started the group, and we were getting a little bit of pushback because people wanted to join and maybe they couldn't because they weren't a millennial. And so the board got together and we restructured the group 2 times since that point. And so now at this juncture, it's open to anyone. It is still a core, predominantly a group of millennials, but it doesn't matter what age generation you're attached to or a part of, you can still join the group, because the way we looked at that is there's a lot to learn from all generations in life, and it wouldn't be fair just to keep everything millennial based, because it would almost be working against what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's one of the funny things that is like you find pretty much every week there's a new article. This is what millennials are doing. Millennials are drinking wine. Millennials like this or that. But we're talking about a group that starts in 1980, and like you said, through 2002. I was born in '86. I don't have a lot in common with someone who was born in 2000, let's say. But what are some of the common characteristics of millennials, if there are any? It seems like we're a pretty diverse group, in my opinion.
Yeah, so when it comes to, I'm not a big fan of the stereotypes out there. I'm not a big fan of the what makes a millennial. And a lot of people look at that as someone that's entitled. Most of them, if you're a male, some females have beards and tattoos, right? So it's like these stereotypes of millennials.
The lumberjack look.
Right, and these stereotypes that exist, and it doesn't matter what generation or ethnicity you are, but they are there. And so that was almost another force that we decided to join, to create this group and start a group that it shows that we're not just a bunch of entitled brats that live in our parents' basement and drink Mountain Dew and play video games until we're 40 years old. It's so much more than that, and I feel like the generation of millennials, we have to prove that. And so that was a huge reason, amongst many, that we wanted to create some sort of group that wasn't just about going out and drinking booze, but actually doing stuff in the community, showing that, we do care.
And what is some of the community work that you do? I know you've done a lot of beach cleanups. What else are some of the things that might be actually coming up?
Yeah, so beach cleanups, that has been something that we've stuck with since the first quarter that we were an organization. We partnered with Keep Brevard Beautiful, and we said, hey, you know, we live on the Space Coast. Everyone thinks of the Space Coast as the beaches. The easiest thing for us to do is to gather once a quarter and go out there and clean up the beach. And since then, it's almost kind of grown into these other events where we've partnered with local nonprofits, whether it was to kind of, you know, give them a little bit more exposure because maybe they were the underdog and they don't have the marketing dollars and or the knowledge to really kind of get their word out there. So we've helped with that. We've done events with the Junior League of South Brevard where we've partnered with them. The Haven for Children, where we, you know, for the last 3 years we've done an Easter basket assembly where we just get together and we create these Easter baskets and give them to the children at the Haven. We partner with, like I said, Keep Brevard Beautiful quarterly, the Haven for Children. BAC, so Brevard Achievement Center, is another organization that it's now an annual event that we do. We partner with them in local high schools, and members of our group, we go to these high schools and we interview students that are maybe a senior or a junior, and they're almost like a mock interview for a potential job at Publix. Yeah. So that's probably one of my favorite events to do.
Yeah, that's great. And so let's talk about millennial life in Brevard. And some people may be surprised that there are actual millennials here. And I'm going to be honest, when I first got this job here at Florida Today, and the thought of moving to Brevard was, oh, I'm moving into a retirement community. And I'm sure that that's the perception that a lot of people have of the Space Coast, despite, you know, the space program and everything, all the great things that we have happening here. So I've spoken to companies and the Economic Development Commission. That's a challenge that they have in attracting young professionals to the area. When you talk to other millennials, what are the reasons that they move here?
Good question. And so we have partnered with EDC for the last 3 years on that same question. You know, how do we attract talent that are in this certain demographic? And so the answer to that is it's a very complex one, and you know, you can't really identify what is going to make someone want to move here. The best you can do is sort of kind of push them along. So I remember when you first moved here, because we did have lunch, and this was like a big concern. You know, you're coming from down, you know, South Florida, and you were like, what, you know, is there nightlife? Is there anything going on in the area? And you know, in terms of the rest of the United States and other major cities, yeah, we are pretty low on the totem pole as far as nightlife is concerned and as far as what the typical millennial wants to do. But in terms of what there is, you know, what the Space Coast offers in terms of entertainment, things to do outdoors, and really like the amount of potential to grow your business, I think that was the biggest attracting feature for me and most of the people that I talk to. Is they come here and they see the potential that Brevard has, and they want to be a part of this to create almost the culture that they want to live in, and a lot of it's based on past experiences. So maybe they lived in a major city, New York City, or you know, out on the West Coast, San Diego, something like that, and they bring those experiences to Brevard, and those are the people that are going to create this rich culture that Brevard will have in the near future.
Yeah, so the EDC did a survey not too long ago, and one of the facts here that I find very interesting is that 62% of millennials actually chose to live in Brevard over another location. And I was surprised because I thought, and only 10% were raised in Brevard. Because usually the perception is if you're young and you're in a smaller community is because you couldn't get out.
Right. And
you know, that's an awful stereotype, and this just shows that that doesn't apply. So why did you move here? Or I understand you were in the Navy and that's what brought you here in the first place, but give us your story and maybe how that applies to other young people.
Sure. So I was stationed in Cape Canaveral from 2011 to 2015. So when I moved here from Virginia Beach, and I was in the Navy up there, actually at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and I was looking for orders, and the orders for here came up. And I remember talking to someone that had just transferred from here to Norfolk, and I was like, hey man, what is Brevard County, the Space Coast? Like, I've never even heard of this place. And literally his comment was, it's the greatest place on earth. And that was it. Like, there was no other context applied to it. And so I took that. I said, that sounds great. Like, I'll go. And I came down here, and immediately it was an immediate culture shock from where I just came from. So Virginia Beach, that area is so populated with military. The citizens there, from a military perspective, don't really appreciate what we do. And so there were times where I had to go out in the community and I could not disclose that I was in the military. I almost had to hide that. So that's when trying to grow a beard would come in over the weekend. I would keep my hair a little bit longer, because as soon as someone found out you were in the military, it was almost like they would shun you. Down here, it was the exact opposite. And that was the first time that I actually opened my eyes and I was like, this community's different. And so that was in 2011 when I moved here. And over the course of the 4 years that I was active duty, I just realized that this is a community that I needed to be a part of, and it felt different to me. It felt actually like a home. It felt like somewhere where in the past, I had lived in several different cities throughout my 10 years in the Navy. Each of those locations I was, transient. I was going to one place. I didn't really care about the people, the community. It was just kind of there. I knew I was going to be moving somewhere else. Here it was immediately different, and I knew I wanted to get involved in the community, ingrain myself, find friends, find family, and start a family here. And that was the big thing for me.
And what made you care so much about this particular community?
It's just a magical little place that we have, and the people, I think, is always kind of the cornerstone of what makes an area great. And I noticed just the amount of, the people here are so thankful for what everyone does. They're willing to give back.
Yes, they are.
They're super friendly, which is rare to find, especially in Florida, because you do have like this mixing pot of different backgrounds. And being here, it was just like everyone was open to kind of give you advice or help you in one way or another. And so the people was a huge push for that. And also the opportunity of the area. So coming from, I lived in major cities, and coming here and not seeing that, it didn't make me look at this area as like, oh, I got to get out of here and find something great. My mindset was like, oh, I got to stay here and create or make something great.
Yeah, and you moved here in 2011, the end of the shuttle program, and we all read reports about how bad that was for Brevard. Looking back over the last 7 years, what has changed in Brevard? What has happened that makes this area, it's really putting us on a map, and we see a lot going on, and I definitely see the potential for even more growth in the future.
Yeah, so I was not here, I missed all the shuttles, but I, of course, hear about them, and I've looked into the history of them. And I think the big thing that has given us the boost now is the private sector, it's now the race to space is what's happening. So all these private organizations entering that market, I think that is the catalyst of what's, put Brevard on the map, like you said. And so that's a good start. And so now it's almost like put a magnifying glass on this area, and they're saying, well, if all these private space sectors are coming here, they obviously know that higher paying jobs are going to be in the area. So then the housing market is affected, and in real estate, I definitely see that and I monitor that. And then it also kind of puts an eye on what else are these people going to be needing. So that's why we're seeing an influx of restaurants, and it's just really cool because the economy is totally impacted by even the small amount of business growth in the area.
Yeah, and we're seeing like some really cool kind of like hipster places popping up. Just here in Melbourne, you have open mics and you have Intracoastal, other breweries in the area. Is that something recent, and do you see more of that happening, in terms of catering to this new population?
Yes and no. So Intracoastal was one of the first breweries that I think I had ever really enjoyed. In Virginia, there was a couple, and down here it was Intracoastal. It just seemed like a really cool location. I loved the O'Galley Arts District, and the beer there is phenomenal. So that, in 2011, I think at that point we had a couple different breweries. Now I think we're up to 13 or something like that. But I have seen sort of, there have been an influx of different businesses or restaurants that have come into the market, almost to cater to that, again, stereotypical millennial, like what are we going to like? Okay, they're going to like craft beer and hamburgers or whatever it is that we're enjoying at the time, whatever's kind of trending. So I've definitely seen much more options when it comes to terms of restaurant. Nightlife is still kind of, at that weird point where there's not an incredible amount of options out there, which, in my 30s now, we talked about this earlier, like, I'm actually cool with it. Like I'm not looking to go out and drink until 2 a.m. anymore. Like that is okay, and there's a spot for that. And downtown Melbourne has done a fantastic job at sort of catering to all audiences and the nightlife. There are other areas in the county that most certainly have nightlife, but kind of shuts down at 10, 11, which is, to me, what's the saying? Nothing happens after 2 a.m. or something like that. Some saying like that.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college and I used to complain of places where bars have to shut down at 2, and I was like, I couldn't even make it to 2 a.m.
No
anymore. So you mentioned downtown Melbourne, and one of the cool things going on there is that there will be potentially a hotel right behind Meg O'Malley's. And what we've heard here in Florida today is that you have sort of a tension going on of people saying, what, you're trying to turn this into downtown Miami, and I don't think that's going to happen because of one hotel. But then you have this push for more growth. And what are your thoughts about balancing that? Because we still have an older population, and they deserve to have, you know, a community that suits their needs as well. So how do you achieve that?
Well, so the balance is going to be difficult because you're always going to have people that, you know, are going to hold on to one thing and people that are pushing towards something else. The demographic in Brevard is mainly older population, lots of retirees. I definitely am always one to play devil's advocate, so I completely understand where they're coming from. They moved here, retired here for specific reasons. They want to keep it quiet, easy, no traffic. They just want to relax. And then you have this other group of people that are the ones that are still working towards retirement, that want to enjoy, you know, quality of life, start a family, or raise their family. And so you have this merge of these different generations that are combining. I think there is going to be a mutual understanding. There's going to have to be, because at one point, one generation is going to supersede or going to take over the other one, and I don't think it will be a malicious act. What I do is I think there should be a mutual understanding of the two. As far as becoming, you know, a Miami, you know, no offense to Miami, but I hope it doesn't come into that. But I think what people are, you know, they're just jumping to massive conclusions. But I think, you know, the overall younger population, whether you're a millennial or not, thinks that, you know, there should be more alternatives, more things to do, and there should be options out there. And I do not disagree with that.
Is it, so I assume, I did a column, I think last year, about how we can attract more millennials. And one of the complaints that I heard is that lack of things to do. And it is a complaint that I have. I live in Suntree, and if I want to go to a bar or, you know, a restaurant, I have to drive 20 minutes to downtown Melbourne or Cocoa Village. Is that the main complaint that you hear, is like a little more entertainment, a little more cool things to do?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, you have, I do have people that have made complaints about that said, you know, I wish there was more options for nightlife. And my kind of answer to that is, well, you know, we have a selection, and probably what you're looking for isn't going to be here anyway. That's why Orlando's an hour away.
Yeah.
Like, drive to Orlando, spend the night out there, have a cool weekend getaway. And that's the greatest thing about being in our location. It's the sweetest location because Jacksonville's 2 hours north, Miami's 3 south, and Orlando's 1 hour to the, you know, to the west. So if you want to have that crazy, you know, night where you go out and, you know, wake up on a rooftop and whatever happens, like, do that somewhere else and then come back home and realize, like, yeah, I'm so glad.
And you can recover from your hangover.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, you know, having alternatives in surrounding areas just makes it even greater to live in the Space Coast, because everyone knows how that affects a downtown. Like, if you go to downtown Orlando on a Saturday night, like, it's dirty, it's filled with people, it's fights and police. It's just like, parking. I mean, it's something that I personally am glad doesn't happen here. Will Brevard ever get to that point? I don't, you know, who knows? I don't think we have the infrastructure to support that. Yeah. But who's to say in 10 years that it doesn't? Yeah,
one of the things is we're in no position to compete with Orlando or attracting people to our tech industry who otherwise would be in Silicon Valley. So what is the thing that we can offer to bring these more of these young professionals, you know, that is unique to us? Because, we'll never be Orlando, and I don't think anybody wants to be Orlando.
Well, I think the proposition is we offer an alternative to Orlando and these other places. To where if you want that, you know, the nightlife, you're in your early 20s or maybe 30s, and you want to be able to go out every night of the week, walk to these restaurants, kind of, you know, enjoy the nightlife. Like, that's Orlando for you. But there's going to be a point in your life where you're going to be like, you know, that's not really the life I want to live anymore. Maybe I'm ready to settle down. Maybe I'm ready to, you know, find a mate, procreate, whatever it is. And when you come to that realization, like, you will really start cherishing the area that we have and that we've sort of created here in Brevard County.
Yeah, and speaking of finding a mate, there was a recent study that gave the Space Coast a C- grade on its dating scene. It cites the number of singles within a population, percentage of singles with bachelor's degrees or higher, the number of restaurants and bars per capita, and other things. Is it that bad? I understand you met your wife here, right?
I did. I met my lovely wife here, Rebecca. You are fantastic. I love you. And I joke about it, and I have friends that give me hell about it. And I most definitely married up, and that was something that, you know, I look at and I appreciate her every day, and I know that it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in this location. It's hard for me to remember what it was like being single, but I do know that, Brevard County is great about quality over quantity. So, and it comes from everything from the jobs, the businesses we offer, the restaurants we have, and the people. So maybe we don't have the most amount of singles, but the singles and the people that we do have here, they're much higher quality than in other places that you're going to find.
Yeah, so according to the EDC survey I just mentioned, 57% of Brevard millennials are single, and 25% have completed a graduate school. That seems like a pretty high number. And everywhere I go, I feel like I meet an engineer. And I think that's a good sign. I mean, I'm not single, I'm not on the market, but those seem to be good factors that you might be able to find someone.
Why?
Up to.
What makes that appealing from your standpoint?
From, someone who's educated, a young professional, probably would want someone with the same level of education.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that applies to both men and women. So we're talking about this conflict between old and new, and one other issue that has surfaced in the last few months is this mural in Oak Alley. It was painted by a very prominent LA artist, and it's a mural of exploding famous cartoon characters, and that has caused a lot of controversy, and the city is actually appealing the decision to approve it. When I was at a meeting where they were approving this mural, I think there were a lot of people from 321 Millennials there. I believe you were there as well, right?
Correct, yeah.
Explain a little bit why you think that mural should stay up, and what are some of the forces playing against each other here?
Yeah, so the artist was curated from Los Angeles. Matt Gondek is his name, and he is widely known for his pieces. They all are some sort of historic recreation in nature, and it does what art is intended to do, and that is, evoke emotion. So whether it's love, whether it's hate, whether you're laughing, crying, whatever it is, you're talking about it. You're thinking. It's embracing the human brain to actually think about something and say, I like that. I don't like that. I don't know if I agree with that. I do agree with that. Whatever it is, like, that is the intent of art, and that's something that I've always appreciated. I think that anytime that someone is thinking about something and it's creating conversation, that's a good thing. So the mural scene here in Brevard in the last 12 months we've seen lots of improvement. The city has been great about kind of seeing the potential of these murals, and it's not that traditional or what people think of a mural of just graffiti or some sort of wall art. It's actually artists that put thought behind the piece that they're doing, and it's intentional. Just like the piece on, I think it's Rise Above CrossFit, the wall there on Oak Alley, like, that was intentionally done to create some sort of emotional response. And if you think about art, that is that's its purpose. So as far as the murals go, I think it's a great thing for the area. I think what it does is it helps enrich the community, and it does enhance culture in a little bit, because what it's doing is it's creating people's activity in the area. Yeah,
and I think the biggest issue was that it's right across the street from a furniture shop, and the owners were actually the ones who didn't like it. They thought that would hurt their business. But and I've gone on record saying that I think the mural should stay up, but it is, and I think it's an issue I see, is that we're trying to promote ourselves as being this really cool up and coming place, but at the same time there's all this fuss over a mural. And then how do you even define what is actually offensive? That is such a subjective thing. And how do you think the city should proceed? Because my understanding is they will change their policy on how they approve murals. And I mean, is that something you guys are keeping track of?
A little bit. So it's something that we've been kind of monitoring. I mean, this dates back to last year when the whole mural kind of war kicked off with Shaquan's wall, because it was over the 10% text rule. And the city, he had to paint it over because it beat that. As far as what is offensive and what not, that is extremely subjective, and there's no real way that I can tell you, like, you're not offended by this. Like, that's not my position, nor is it yours to tell me mine. So if that's a criteria, that's going to be something really difficult to defend. But overall, I just think that as far as the kind of kickback and that people have said about that mural, at the end of the day, it's doing its purpose, and it's creating people to talk about it. And so the lady, the furniture owner, I completely understand her perspective on that. But if anything, it's giving her more exposure. And so from a businessman, I look at that as almost like, how is she not adding that up. Like when people drive by that, whether they're stopping there or whether they're standing and the mural is behind them, like what are they looking at? Like her business is there, so I look at it as an opportunity for exposure. You might not, agree with it, but I think, at the end of the day, it's creating some sort of emotion, and I think it's a catalyst for more things like that to come in the area.
Yeah, so, and one last thought is one of the reasons that Brevard is so attractive is that it's a cheaper place to live in terms of real estate. And you are in the real estate industry, and I'm starting to hear from different groups, including charities who work with the homeless, and they're really concerned about this trend of, with people who make more money moving in, the price of real estate is going to go up, and the price of rent actually has escalated. I believe compared to last year, rents have gone up by roughly 15%. Are you seeing that trend? And do you see that as an issue, or because we're still cheaper than other areas, that shouldn't be an issue?
So, relatively speaking, we still are, very much so the best bang for your buck. I have people that I know that move from Southern California or New York City, and they come down here and they're like, "Oh my God, your taxes are only this, and I can buy this."
Cheaper than San Francisco. Yeah.
Right. So that's a huge exaggerated comparison, but I mean, the cost of living here is very affordable. Like I said, I moved from Virginia, and what I was paying for a property up there, compared to down here, it's just night and day. So yeah, we are seeing appreciation. Yes, the housing market is reacting to the economic impacts that we've seen locally, and I think that is going to happen regardless.
And one of the things I did recently was ask people on Facebook what businesses they would like to see in Brevard, and I'm telling you, it went crazy. People were like, we need a Costco, a Cheesecake Factory, a P.F. Chang's. My favorite is, and I think it's going to be a long time before we get it, is the Whole Foods.
Oh, wow.
I can see Vieira as the perfect location for that, but I want to ask you, what big businesses and sort of like the big box stores would you like to see here in Brevard, if any?
I'm not a big fan of the big box stores. It's funny, when Rebecca and I are choosing even something down to a dinner, a restaurant for the evening, like she knows that I'm not going to pick a chain. So, nothing against the OG or Olive Garden, but I'm probably not going to choose that for dinner. So I want to, again, that's just my mind saying I want to support local businesses. I want to support the people that made the conscious decision to live here, start a business, and create something great and offer it to the people. So that's why I'm always choosing local restaurants, and same when it comes to businesses. I'd much rather get my coffee from Anaya than go to Starbucks. Same thing, food, beer, it's all kind of the same. So big box stores, I mean, we have 2 Sam's Clubs. We have Fresh Market, which is, I think, close. Right, it's not a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods, but you could drive to Orlando to go to Whole Foods.
And we need to wrap up here, but thank you so much, Shane.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. My thanks to Shane for joining me in the studio. If you have questions, you can email me at irangel@floridatoday.com. And be sure to join us again next week, right here on WEFS and on floridatoday.com. Thank you.